everybody, it's LindaG, and I'm here today with our wonderful Sterling for the show you look forward to. And you did a show that's coming out too today.
Right. There is a show that launches every Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So that show is actually already launched as we're recording this.
So
yeah,
probably
absolutely.
some of the stuff might be repeats, but the main thing is I asked him if it was okay to ask about the elephant in the room, which is Israel and what's going on with there. And
Sure.
you saw it may take a while for this to all be resolved.
Yeah, absolutely. This whole Mideast crisis that we have is a long time in coming, and there are many players, many actors, many bad actors involved, not just Hamas. So this is a long-term problem. It's going to take a long time to get this all taken care of. But it's interesting. I see a new rebalance in the Middle East after we go through this. So it's all part of the Earth's history here. Things go in cycles. But yeah, three major militant groups in Israel. Well, besides Hamas, you've got a northern radical group and a very southern radical group. And so it looks like there are going to be some combination of efforts there. So it's going to take a while for Israel to eradicate the problem.
Okay. And you did see like 25, according to my guides, has always been sort of the new beginning for us. 2025. And you saw Netanyahu kind of being exited.
Yeah, I think we talked about this maybe 6 months ago. We were talking about Netanyahu, and at that time, my guys were saying it's going to be like another 1 to 2 years. He'll still be in there. So for where we are right now, it looks like maybe another year. It looks like he'll be ousted, but really because of a big intelligence failure on his watch, right? Because of so that's really what's going to bring him down. Interesting enough, the radical things he was trying to do with the government aren't going to bring him down per se. A lot of protests, but it's now like this is inexcusable, the intelligence failure. So yeah.
Well, when it first happened, I thought, did he have something to do with this? In a roundabout way, he did, because according to this big article I read this morning in the Beast, he was very angry at the protesters, and he was angry at the military and not helping them. In fact, they tried to tell him there was rumors of something like this happening, and he poo-pooed them and thought they were just left-wingers. He thinks like Trump thinks. They weren't on his side, so to hell with you. And it was really bad between the military and him. Now they'll work with him because they have to. They want to save the people of Israel. But
yeah,
they said Americans too. Did you see Americans?
Yeah, you're talking about being hostages. You're talking about? Yeah, absolutely. I do see. I think the numbers are being underreported right now. I think there's hundreds of hostages over there right now. Yeah,
that's so sad. And listen, I was just telling Sterling. Somebody, I don't know, it could have been fake news, said that they have been considering going over the border of Mexico into the United States, like Texas and maybe the very southern part of California, and attacking us. And I thought, oh my goodness, I have kinfolk in Texas that aren't right-wingers, but even the right-wingers, let me tell you, when America comes together, like I said, the closets in Texas, but right next to the cereal is your guns. And
exactly.
The military probably wouldn't even have to show up.
No, very, very true. They would just say, we got it handled. We got it handled. Yeah.
It's like a lot of those people are like waiting for something. Come on, do that.
Very, very, very true. Yeah. But I don't see a big incursion over the Mexican border, if that's what you're talking about, from this. Right. But yeah, there are going to be a lot of world entities involved in this crisis in the Middle East. There'll be a lot of entities that are trying to help diplomatically, and some on the back end with weapons. So it's going to be a long process here, but it'll be a big reset for the Middle East. So in the end, looks like we'll actually come out on the other side a little bit better, a little more stable in the Middle East. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you to Linda and Daniel for getting our questions together. Here's question number 1. Will Kevin get revenge on those who ousted him? I can't see him just allowing the Gates 8 to skate.
I don't see any outright revenge, but I do see him participating and expelling like Matt Gaetz. So, I think, but, Kevin McCarthy has got good company in that area with trying to expel, Matt Gaetz. So I guess I don't see any direct revenge from Kevin McCarthy. Looks like he'll be in Congress for a long time. He'll still be in Congress for a long time.
Okay. Somebody else, I think, Andre, Astrology Alert, said his sign is actually hanging in there. Will there be political violence in the U.S. this fall and winter? Will citizens be safe?
Yeah, by and large, I see a lot of U.S. citizens safe. There's going to be a lot of pockets of protest and a few radical militia groups doing things that are very unsavory, power stations, explosions, trying to upset the stability in the U.S. But I don't see by and large a lot of, let's say, U.S. citizens losing their lives. I do see a lot of upset and a lot of protest still. Yeah,
I saw pockets.
yeah.
And the other thing is, I do feel our intel will catch some of these before they happen.
Right, right. Just like the two, I think they were Russians, Russian nationality that were caught a few days ago. They were in a van with a lot of explosives. Remember that?
Oh,
It was in the news, but it looks like they were planted here by offshore group, and they were going to try to create some unrest, but they were caught. So you'll see that in the news. Yeah.
I thought, I was surprised nothing happened on Labor Day. I felt like something around Labor Day, but nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
Sterling, what can you tell us about Steve Bannon, who, accordingly to the New York Times, stokes the chaos by the far right? He plotted with Matt Gaetz on how to get rid of Kevin McCarthy. What is his agenda? He's so awful.
Well, his agenda is aligned completely with 45, no secret there. So it's going to try to destabilize the U.S. and put it under more direct control of like a wannabe dictator. So it's trying to get real control over the government, the military. So Steve Bannon's, for entertainment purposes only, his agenda has not changed from day one. But I've always seen him in jail, in prison for a period of time. So even going back like 2 years ago when I was reading on Steve Bannon. So he's going to end up in jail and prison.
I saw the end of him, not necessarily by death, but he won't be able to vocalize.
Right.
Last Sunday on Sterling's show, he said animals are from an angelic realm, but they are not angels. What is the angelic realm?
It's another realm, another region within the heaven dimension. So that is actually where angels exist, but not everything that moves in and out of that angelic realm is an angel. So even some ascended masters moving out of that realm, animals do. Animals are connected there because they actually have unconditional love, which is very hard for humans to have. So that's why animals can move in and out of that angelic realm very easily. Yeah.
Wow. Why can't I seem to separate myself from items such as my mother's dishes or other items I receive from people I love? Do the items themselves have their energy on them, or is it just my memories that keeps me holding on to them?
It's actually both. It's actually mental triggers, right? So when you see anything or hear anything, even like music or see an object, there are mental triggers that trigger like even endorphins in the brain and good feelings, but also energetically, just the way psychometry works. People's energy are on objects. So it's both. The answer is both.
Wow. I have my mom's shoes. I have my mom's shoes and her hairbrush, which is weird, but yeah. How will delay in our funding to Ukraine impact their ability to defend against the Russian invasion?
I see very little effect, but that's because I think there's already $300 million allocated right now. And then like there's another $9 billion that could be spread around other military efforts. It's not all dedicated to Ukraine, but there's a lot of room here for moving funds around. I don't see that it's going to have a big impact on Ukraine, the war in Ukraine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Generals Miley and Kelly speaking out about 45's denigration of the military. Will this have a strong influence on independents who support 45?
No, surprisingly, no. And it was awful. But what's going to have the biggest impact is Roe v. Wade. Everything around Roe v. Wade and women's rights, that actually, believe it or not, is the biggest trigger. A lot of the things going on around 45 are awful. But the big trigger, believe it or not, for a lot of independent voters, a lot of, subgroups, whatnot, and voters is Roe v. Wade and women's rights.
Yeah. And when it happened, I said they've awoken the sleeping giant. And the thing is they're holding on to it tight. They don't get the hint. And even 45 said, I don't know, you guys, I think this was a bad thing to do.
Right, right. I think you and I talked about that when it first happened. I said, as awful as this is, it will get overturned. There'll be replacements on the Supreme Court and whatnot. But in an odd sort of way, it's kind of a gift to the other party because, what they did here is just, it unlocked a lot of voters they didn't count on. They're going to vote to oppose the Republican Party. Yeah.
And all this military, they're being held up because of Tuberville. I imagine that's pissing them off.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see with the U.S. political environment? What will it be like in 25 and 26?
Well, I've said this before. I think you've said it before too. I do see a very strong Democratic hold on Congress, both houses, and Biden actually in the White House still. So I do see a lot of activity in terms of, amendments to the Constitution, a lot of laws being passed, even actually getting rid of the filibuster. So if we get out 2025, 2026, looks like there'll be enough votes there to get rid of the filibuster and do some things that will allow it easier for reasonable government to go ahead. So in the congressional side, I see a lot of good things happening. On the public side in society, still a lot of unrest. Right. Because a lot of people still say that the election was stolen, believe it or not. And, we're going to hear a lot of the same rhetoric.
Yeah. Oh, what's his name? From My Pillow. He's seeing what that did for him. $30 million he lost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When those in Congress that participated in the January 6th attempt to upend the peaceful transfer of power, will there ever come a time they are removed?
There will, but we're still a year to 2 years out from that. And I think I've always seen this has to do some sort of like a log jam, something with a lot of things going on through the legal system and the bandwidth of federal prosecutors. So it's kind of a log jam, if you will. It's going to happen in a year to 2 years here, but not right away.
Okay. I left my TV on mute, so in case it said breaking news. Mm-hmm. And apparently the United States is bringing in big ships, mm-hmm. battleships into Israel, mm-hmm. to the waters of Israel.
Not surprising.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they're not going to do anything. I didn't see boots on the ground.
Right.
Okay. So we still have a couple of years, but at least we're looking towards something. Highland and Sterling with full immersion virtual reality becomes a thing in the next 10 years. Will stimulated reality become a part of the world's economy?
Absolutely. In a 10-year period, if not a little faster, full immersive reality will be part of commerce and entertainment and social networks. Absolutely. But it'll be using holographic technology. So like I'll be able to see you in my living room, like while we're doing the Zoom call. So the holographic technology will create 3D imagery right before you, even without goggles. So that in 10 years, you won't have to have goggles. You'll be able to see it visually.
Isn't that something? When you just said that, I even remember AOL had those little rooms where you could meet and gather based on your interests. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they still have that around, but I even thought gathering of different peoples just to meet each other, sort of a meet and greet, but it's through that virtual reality. Yeah.
And, in a lot of stuff I've done with the studios, in fact, I'll even drop a line. Even with DreamWorks, we had virtual presence systems. So you could actually walk into a conference room and there was an identical conference room built up in Northern California to the one that was here in Southern California in Glendale. But everything was life size and very high bandwidth, very high resolution. So when you walked in the conference room, you actually saw your colleagues sitting right across the conference table from you in what looks like the same room. So actually that virtual presence technology already exists. But it'll actually now get to a point where it's now 3D and you actually be able to see the person, so it'll go a step higher, but virtual presence is the next level before we get to full immersive, without goggles. Mm-hmm.
Well, think of what it'll do even for the United States. Mm-hmm. If a president doesn't have to be physically somewhere, that'll save everybody a lot of flight and all that stuff. If you could have big meetings with everyone in one place.
Yeah, and there's entertainment applications too. So for example, if you want to go buy a Rolling Stones concert ticket, they'll actually be able to perform in your living room. So you actually see them. It. Yeah, so there'll be entertainment applications as well.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, that's exciting. Okay, will 45 actually get the House Speaker's position like some are saying he will?
No, I don't see
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, I don't see that at all.
I
But
never
I
saw it.
do see him with his hands completely in the whole process. And for some reason, I thought he might even make an appearance, try make an appearance in the House or something, to try to glare at different people. But there's something going on. He'll have his hands in the process, but I don't see him going down that road to be the speaker now.
And you will see the Democrats glued together.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure. Because the
Mm-hmm.
next question, who is the next speaker? Can we get an agreed on budget in 45 days? So that's two questions.
Yeah. I've always seen chaos. You and I talked about this on the 24th of September. I said I was seeing so much chaos, I couldn't even see a name.
Yeah.
And now what I see is just a little bit, a glimpse. It could end up being Steve Scalise,
That's who I saw.
but for a very short period of time. So whether that's health, something comes up, or they try to get him out again, just like him. And so eventually I see a lot of flip-flopping around the House speakership. And then Hakeem Jeffries becomes a speaker. So, and it's interesting, Jeffries, I'm getting a cold chill on this right now, usually confirmation.
Yeah.
He might end up getting in before the presidential election, believe it or not. So
Because it's so much chaos.
right. But I think that's out into next year, into maybe mid, but it looks like he might get in before the actual 2024 election, kind of later on the year. Yeah.
Well, this is one
Next
way,
year I'm talking about. Yeah.
because those 8 people wouldn't let that happen. One way is that they're going to start taking out the ones who were involved in January 6th. Jack Smith turns around and starts doing subpoenas. Legally, they can't even be in the House anymore because they have a possibility of going to jail for over 2 years. Sorry, I keep losing my voice.
That's okay. But by the way, I see some Republicans crossing over to support Democrats for the. I believe that's how it happens. They get a handful of Republicans, whether it's 12 or 15 or 20, because after all the chaos that's going to go on with the speakership here, they're going to get to a point where the people that support them in their district say this is too crazy. You better get it together.
So then that brings us to the other question: the budget. Could it be that this Steve Scalise is a nothing burger with the budget, and then people are so upset they say, "Get him out of here"?
Yeah, whenever I look at the budget, I always saw, and I talked about this September 24th on your show. I always saw they're going to kick the can down the road with a continuing resolution, which they did. Now, it looks to me like they could still do it again as we get out for, the 45-day out. I think it was November 17th, I think is the date. But for me, it looks like they might end up doing another continuing resolution, unfortunately.
Which the Democrats would vote for, just put something on the table.
Yeah. So it looks like it's still going to be a mess, unfortunately. I hate to say. Yeah.
Sterling and Linda, in the next few years, will Phoenix, Arizona become too hot for people to live in?
Yeah, that's a continuing problem for a lot of the Southwest for about another 4 years. Yeah, so drought issues, temperature, climate change. I don't see it turning around in the overall Southwest, including Arizona, until we get out like another 4 years here. So it's going to be an issue. Yeah,
because they also asked, will ETs help get our climate under control? I don't know if ETs can help with that.
Yeah, I mean, not in that area. They help with major storms that would affect or flood out, full states or parts of the U.S., major earthquakes. But they're not going to get involved in drought conditions in a localized area. I don't ever see it. They never tell me they're doing that. Yeah.
As I become so much more spiritual, I'm having a difficult time trying to reconcile myself with eating meat. And I will likely end up becoming a pescatarian, vegetables, but eat seafood. My question is, what do your guides say about this?
Yeah, well, everybody in humanity is going to be moving away from actually eating meat, believe it or not, as you go decades down the road. A lot of lab-grown foods, lab-grown meats are what's coming. So it'll be a problem without any kind of condition. People will still want to eat quasi-meat, but it'll be plant-based or lab-grown, and it won't be animals. So
I'm a
problem will be
diabetic,
solved. Yeah.
And my doctor said I can't be a vegetarian because I'm a diabetic. So I have to have something. But I could come off meat for sure. Hello from the UK. Yay! we are going through a lot here with our own versions of Trump. Rishi Sunak and MTG, Susela Braverman. Can you see an early election for us? We want them gone. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but not until late next year, even 2025. So it looks like Rishi Sunak, I think is how you say his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, he won't be out for until late next year, out into the next year. So
do you know what his title is?
Prime Minister, isn't he? Rishi
Okay,
Sunak.
that is
And in fact, a year and a half ago, they were asking the question, who will be the next prime minister? And I kept getting Rishi Sunak, and then it ended up being the woman for 45 days or 40 days.
Richie.
That was Rishi Sunak. So, it was kind of interesting. It's lined up. But so anyway, this is all forecast. It's all on kind of coming out of the Akashic records. So, yeah.
Okay. The Republicans are starting to bring up Matt Gaetz perversions. Will this get Matt ousted?
Well, it's going to give him a lot of legal problems, but I don't see it getting him ousted. What I see is what kind of went down with Kevin McCarthy. Not that it wasn't the right way to do it, but it looks like that's going to get him ousted or expelled. So,
okay. Do you ever see radio networks become history?
Well, radio networks in themselves, we're talking about the news media. I just see them moving to a lot of different distribution channels. So a lot of wireless streaming platforms away from what they call terrestrial broadcast. But there'll always be a function in society for news media. But
and also, if there's some sort of breakdown in the United States, you always have the radio.
Yeah, but I think what the person's asking about here is, well, like a lot of the radio networks that are terrestrial broadcast and radio, will they go away? And it looks like they're going to go on to streaming platforms. But the good news is you can hear streaming platforms on your mobile device over cellular networks. So the platform's going to change is what I think the answer is here. Yeah.
You know what? Because of all this information that came, I needed that downtime to release it. So I watched Laurel and Hardy yesterday. And I watched the one that his wife said he needed to get. They have a radio. In those days, there was no television, but you needed an antenna up on your roof. He says, my wife wants to listen to Japan. And so they both worked together. They messed it up so bad. They even caused the fireplace to get destroyed. I just laughed my heart out. It was so funny. They were so funny.
Yeah, that's great comedy. Great comedy.
It was great comedy.
Yeah.
But when you want to just release and just watch something silly, funny, they are the ones. Will Ivanka support her dad and siblings financially when 45 loses his court case?
Yeah, interesting enough, those plans are already in place. There's a lot of finances, investment funds stowed offshore, Saudi Arabia, parts of Europe. So yeah, those plans are already in place. Unfortunately, yeah.
Do you see anything coming up this week?
No, we talked about that some on the show. So it looks to me like they may start, believe me, the process with Matt Gaetz of trying to push him out of the House. It looks that way. It also looks like they're going to, for some reason, I think Steve Scalise may throw his hat in the ring, or he already has, but there's some sort of a push there. We talked about all the things going on here with the crisis in the Middle East. And so I see many more countries diplomatically supporting Israel and militarily, not putting boots on the ground. So we're going to see a lot of that activity this week. We're also going to hear this week about where all the intelligence failures occurred, because it does look like there was something going on in the government of Israel that, it's like we're being paid to look the other way. So there's something coming up here where it's not like the intelligence wasn't known. And it already came out in the press, but Saudi Arabia, believe it or not, already warned Israel weeks ago, saying, you better heads up. There's something going on with Hamas.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not, I think my team saying there's something coming out this week where something internal in the Israeli government, like they were asked to look the other way. And that's how this kind of didn't happen.
What I read in the Beast this morning, I put it on my community page, is that Netanyahu was so incensed that the military was against him with this change in the Constitution, he shut them out. So maybe, or if he was paid to shut them out, that's a horse of a different color.
Very true. Very true. Yeah.
But if he was paid to shut them out, he would go sooner than later, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Do you have anything your guys want to share?
Yes. Start with the biggest changes you want to make in your life with very small steps. Take small steps at a time, and you realize before you know it, you kind of achieve a greater good for yourself and those around you. So don't be afraid to take on larger challenges in life, but do it incrementally, small steps at a time. That's what I'm hearing for this week.
Awesome. Any last question? Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing sort of a stalemate, or just or do you see other big, huge incidents with loss of life in Israel?
Well, I'm sorry to say there's a lot of death and destruction coming around Israel. Yeah, there's a lot of pent up anger and a lot of weapons still in that country. They're coming over to Israel. So there's a lot of bad players, if you will, in the world that have already supported what's going on with Hamas. So there's more to come here. Yeah.
Oh, it's so sad. It's
Yeah.
so sad.
It's a long time in coming. So.
And these poor people, they're so scared.
Yeah.
And the innocent people of Palestine too. It's like, dear God, because it affects them too. I'm praying really hard, but
yeah. This is a it's a big reset for the world around the Middle East. This one's going to be a big reset, but for the better, as we said. So this is all part of kind of the life's path. This is part of the Earth's blueprint for what's going on. Yeah.
So what was the purpose of sending our military ships to Israel? Just sort of a warning to everybody?
Exactly, because there are other bad actors. Iran's one of them. You know, this is like putting a stake in the ground, saying, you know, even like a line in the sand, don't go across this line.
Okay, that makes total sense.
So it's a little bit of saber rattling, but in a real way, Yeah.
I felt, and I said this on my show, and this is just food for thought. I hope I'm totally wrong, but I did feel a big explosion, another one. Might even be accidentally taking place.
No, I agree. I agree. Yeah.
Okay,
We've got more to come. So it's well, anyway, I think we covered a lot of it on the show. We don't have to
watch
repeat
Laurel
it.
and Hardy, you guys, so you can get your
There you go.
I just pray for those families. I mean, their kitchens, they showed some of the stuff, and you know, looks like an American home, just a regular place, and these people are on the floor begging for their lives. It's terrible. So
yeah, it is. But anyway, real quickly, just in closing, because we always get asked, anybody needs to reach me, just go to sterlingpsychicmedium.com, look for the book a session tab. I think there's dates now in January and February of next year that are available, so that you can look for that. And we also have a YouTube channel. If there are any new viewers to your channel here, we have a channel as well, Sterling Psychic Medium. So
yeah, and you've been doing good. How long have you been on the air now?
I think almost 2.5 to 3 years.
Look at you. And you're like nearly 40, or are you over 40 now?
Yeah, no, I think it's almost 41,000 now. Yeah. So yeah.
You're way better than I was. I've been on since 2008 or 9.
Yeah, well, you know, it's all about the people you reach, right? So it's interesting. I'm sure you get a lot of feedback too, and it does touch people's lives. So that's the good thing, right? Some people don't get connected with a lot of social networks, meaning people around them or friends or family. And a lot of times the information that comes through is very comforting. So it serves a need. And Linda and I always say that, you know, that's kind of a good thing. So,
and listen, I get great feedback about you too. By the way, you guys, I'm no longer doing reading, but I recommend Sterling and others. But I've had great feedback. Oh God, Linda, he was so great. He told me this and that. The good thing is you tell people this is how I used to work too, how to take care of themselves. You're not about solving their problems.
Yeah, I think it's always important. I think as you do, give people the tools. So it's not all about, you know, come and get all the answers. It's like, you know, get some answers, get some guardrails, get some direction of where things are going. But then here's some tools you can implement in your life to kind of put the rudder back on the ship.
Wonderful.
Right. So yeah.
Wonderful. All right, my friend. And is it a beautiful day there? It's beautiful here.
No complaints whatsoever.
Awesome. All right, you guys.
All right.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks, and go on Sterling's channel, because you'll get another update that answers more questions, gets more down to the nitty gritty.
Absolutely. All the
Bye,
best.
guys.